Welcome back to the Charismatic Voice. Today we're going to figure out what kind of food is best represented by Brian Johnson's voice, all while totally nerding out about vocal technique and music composition, of course. And we're going to do this while listening to one of acdc's greatest hits. But first, a quick word about the sponsor for today's video. One of my favorite things about socks is that you can express yourself with a splash of color, or perhaps matching socks to go with your fancy business suit. Or you might broadcast to the world that you are a honey badger who couldn't care less about appearances and wears fluffy socks that go halfway up your calves on top of your pants. That's me when I go grocery shopping. The right socks feel good. And Bombas is my favorite socks brand, not only because they're made with fantastic quality that feels like it hugs my feet in all of the right places, but also because they have a wide variety of socks to suit any occasion. These comfy rag socks and these fluffy socks are what I like to wear inside of boots or just around the house or sometimes outside of my pants when I go grocery shopping. These athletic socks are great for inside of tennis shoes, for long walks or hikes. I have two different types of ankle socks for my business sneakers. One is a little bit more cushy, and the other one is thinner for the last day of conferences when my feet are inevitably going to be a little bit swollen. And of course, I also have the adorable toddler socks to match with my 2.5-year-old. Bombas socks don't just feel good, they also do good. For every item you buy, Bombas makes a donation. One purchased item equals one donated. And they don't just do this with socks, they also offer really high quality and soft undies and t-shirts too. Socks, underwear, and t-shirts are the most needed clothing items by homeless shelters. And to date, Bombas has donated over 150 million of these items to people who need them. So you can both feel good and do good with Bombas, knowing your purchase is doing some real good. New customers get 20% off their first purchase. Just go to bombas.com/charismatic and use code charismatic20 at checkout. Now, I'm going to continue to enjoy that soft, cuddly feeling on my toes while we listen to some good music. It's a huge instrument. Holy cow. His voice is like fire. It's sizzling. That was such an incredible vocal entrance. Okay, so I know that this song is placed in some Marvel movies, and when I heard that initial, not the first few seconds, but once we started getting into the riffs there, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds a little familiar. I think it was in Iron Man, probably a couple others, because I know that, of course, we have some big fans of rock and roll in the Marvel universe. But that being said, when these things play in movies, if you're not familiar with them, you don't really know where they come from. For me, I'm not aware of the bands a lot of times, and it really takes going back to it after I've done a deep listening to say, oh, wasn't that cool how they placed it? So it sounded familiar. That vocal entrance, though, whoa. Well, maybe they ducked the volume in the movie at that point. That vocal entrance was incredible. Let's go back to the beginning. We're going to talk about a lot of different elements here. I love the anticipation that they build up here. My intros are all about building anticipation, I think. Either you get right into it or you build anticipation. There's a choice that has to be made. This one, it almost makes you wonder, like, what? Did they stop playing 6 seconds into the song? Because of the way that some of the sound drops out of the very few sounds we have going. They're like, and... That part. I love the space. I'm just floored by this vocal entrance, y'all. It's so explosive. So when we talk about food that's best represented by Brian Johnson's voice, we have to think about food that is, I think it has to be sizzling. There's such an amazing sizzling quality to his voice, and it needs to be explosive in some way. Okay, we'll continue on that route, I'm sure, in live chat, but let's come back here. I'm also taking this into context, knowing that this is the album that essentially is introducing Brian Johnson as the new lead singer of acdc after Bon Scott's passing. And oh my word, what a way to be introduced to the world. It's so impressive. It packs such a punch right at the beginning. There's a lot of different things about his vocal technique I want to get into, but for this moment, I just want to replay that entrance, like embracing this idea of this is the new sound of acdc. Boom. What did that feel like? There's so much energy in this song. AC/DC songs that I've heard so far don't really feel like super introspective to me, right? At times. Instead, it just feels like, let's have fun. Let's rock. And I think that has amazing value. Amazing. Although the title Back in Black also, I think, is paying a lot of respect to Bon Scott at this point. I think that Brian Johnson's voice can feel abrasive. Right? It definitely has edge to it. We're gonna have to find something that almost feels like it shouldn't be good for you to eat, right? Because it almost sounds like it isn't good for him to sing like this. However, he continued his career for quite a long time. Gosh, I don't know I don't know what he's doing right now. But I know I've seen clips of him singing much later where he still actually had a super, like, continued this signature sound is the way I would describe it. And I think there's a lot that we need to learn about how a person creates a sound like this and continues it for a long career. Because this kind of sound doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something bad to your vocal folds. There are lots of other options. Let's talk about them soon. Let's go back right now and consider what if this were some sort of food that wasn't like maybe it's good for us kind of, but maybe not really good. It's probably fried. That gives us a sizzling aspect. that idea of Pez dispenser that I've talked about with other singers before, it absolutely applies to him. His mouth is like, and if you don't know what a Pez dispenser is, I'm going to ask my editing team right now to put up a little bit, a little graphic, or perhaps even a video of a Pez dispenser. It opens, right? And it does this awesome thing. I even have one back there, but we'll let the editing team give you a better view than I can actually give to the camera here. It's this idea of the opening of the jaw. And if you are really into Pez candies, which I am not, I don't think they taste good at all, even though I had them as a kid. You want to get those candies out as quickly as possible. You're like, oh yeah, I gotta get all the candies, and the Pez dispenser's going blah, 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 the whole time. That's his mouth. And this is actually, it tends to be a really, really good sign in a singer, because that means that they are getting their words and their enunciation out there. I love this. There he is, Pez dispenser. One of the things that's really remarkable and good, another thing that's really good about his vocal technique is his sustain. He actually sustains his sound better than a lot of singers who don't have this kind of rasp can sustain their sound. It's really consistent. It's really hooked in. It's like, whatever we're figuring out food-wise, it's going to work here. It's going to have to be something that like sustains spicy the whole time, right? Or sizzling the whole time. Gosh, maybe it's got pop rocks involved here. It has to sustain that like crazy. He is hooked into his support, and he keeps that sound going. He's not resetting it all the time. It's like it fill up with good gasoline, and it's got some endurance. All right, let's keep going. I'm just adoring the energy of this song, you guys. This is gonna go on a playlist of mine. I think I have an old playlist that I actually haven't broken out in a while, and I need to break it out. It's a before filming playlist. I used to have one that was always before the show for opera. I had like Pavarotti on it with Nessun Dorma. But it also had some Lizzie Hale. I feel like this song just gives you energy, right? It's just so energizing. This is better than the Energizer Bunny. Wow. I feel pumped up, and we haven't even finished it yet. It's just, I love the energy of this song, and I love the way it's not just someone else's energy. It feels like it imbues me with energy. I feel like I'm becoming more superhuman by each second of this music. Oh my gosh. I have a food. I'm sorry. I have a food. I'll tell you about the food in a bit. I shouldn't have paused it so soon. before we get into that one, um, I was originally leaning towards something that was maybe like those fried barbecue wings. So, like the super spicy ones. I admittedly don't like those very much. I was like, well, I don't know if that really wants to be my food. No, 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 no. Um, I want to go with fried pickles, which actually are one of my favorite foods, especially to eat while pregnant. But fried pickles, you guys, oh my gosh, I love them so much. And they have staying power, right? You're like, you got that like lingering aftertaste of the pickle, but of course it's fried. So you're like, is this really good for me? You're like, at the same time, it had electrolytes. There's so much good stuff in pickles. I'll figure out a way to work some spicy in there with the dip, okay? Okay. Let's hear another instrumental solo, I think, coming up. That was a really fun riff and dance as well. I love the guitar motions. They feel like I feel like I've seen those replicated by other bands so much that were influenced by ACDC afterwards. Quick note about vocal technique and what things cause harm versus not causing harm. One of the main things that can cause vocal damage is uh, like high weighty impact or weighty collision. So as you sing and you take a breath, right? Breath first, you have to have breath to sing. And that air starts to flow out, then your vocal folds start to vibrate, right? They're here, they're the lowest part of mechanisms in your vocal tract that can make a sound. And those vocal folds are a little bit fussy and they go wacka, wacka, wacka. And do that really, really quickly, 440 times per second if we're talking about concert A, which orchestra's tuned to. And if you're really loud, that usually means you have more air pressure built up, although resonance can help, but really air pressure is going to increase the amplitude, for you physics nerds, of the sound. And that means that the vocal folds are going to smack a little bit more. So the louder you are, potentially the more smacky your vocal folds are going to be. That's going to increase your risk of some sort of collision damage occurring. And if you think about when things collide a lot or rub together a lot, often we'll get calluses, right? And calluses on our vocal folds essentially present as vocal nodes or nodules, which you've probably heard about superstars having that. It's actually fairly common. Adele famously had nodules a few different times. I've had nodules before. Mine went away with training and therapy, which is what most singers do to get rid of their nodules. And it's super, super common. It's like saying like, oh, I play football and I don't want to have any callus on my feet. What? You're using them all the time. You're going to get a callus at some point. Probably. You can avoid it, definitely. But this said, one of the things I'm hearing in his voice is even though he's got power, a lot of times he's singing fairly high on a rather thin sound from the actual pitch making facility there. This last moment was probably the most power, most volume that I heard. And I don't actually hear a ton of heft going into the actual pitch. I hear this rasp on top, which can be concerning in a different way depending on where it's made. But if we're talking about just the pitch making, it's not super hefty like a semi truck. It's much more lean, which is likely going to be a little bit easier long term. You can build up endurance and build up tons of power over time with lots of good training as well, y'all. Okay, so that's possible. But then let's talk about the rasp. To me, his rasp sounds like it's being made by an upper laryngeal structure. We know that there are structures above the true vocal folds that can create this kind of uh, rougher sound. And if it's not being created with the true vocal folds, which are true vocal folds are pretty fussy. I like to describe them as delicate flowers, and flower petals don't like to uh, have sandpaper rubbed against them, right? The structures above don't seem to be as fussy. There's a lot of different ones. We really don't have much research on them, which is why the charismatic voice is invested in the research. And I know a lot of you have supported that as well. We're trying to understand those upper laryngeal structures a lot more. And in his case, I really think that that rasp is being made up here, which is why he can have a lot more sustain as well. I think that all goes together from my current understanding of voice. Of course, to really know more, we need to put a camera down his throat or do DMRI and actually get video of the whole mechanism working at the same time. But all this said, I think it's a remarkable sound, and I think it's super impressive how he can sustain it. So this is really the heaviest I hear of his singing so far, and it doesn't have the weight, for example, of like a hefty opera singer, or even a lot of the like really loud belters that you will hear on pop radio today. It's a lot leaner. Instead, it just has drive and a lot of cut, which can be achieved more with resonance placement, and then that abrasive rough edge. Ooh, that's a fun pause. Oh my gosh. Oh no. I want this to keep going, you guys. Fried pickles with spicy jalapeno cheese sauce to dip them in. That's what I've decided is best going to represent Brian Johnson's voice. I had to get something spicy in there and then have a little more sustain power because we know cheese sustains like none other. Though you could swap it with your favorite spicy sauce. I really like this song. The energy is amazing. It's going to go on my prep playlist here. And if you want to see some more songs that I just find incredibly energizing, check out this playlist over here. May you fall more in love with music every day.